Hey there, I'm Captain Steve, commercial pilot and aviation enthusiast, taking your burning questions from the internet. This is Ask the Captain. Let's fly. So the first question is from Flaps Up. What's the weirdest thing a passenger has done mid-flight? Okay, well, the weirdest thing that ever happened mid-flight was on a flight from Boston to Los Angeles. About halfway there, the flight attendant called up and said, I've got a situation back there. I said, what's the situation? She said, I don't know how to describe it. I said, go ahead. She said, a passenger has brought her emotional support kitty cat with her, and she's taken it out of the kennel. I said, yeah, what's the problem? She said, she is breastfeeding the cat and it's disturbing the other passengers. Okay, after the laughter died down, I said, well, what do you think we should do? And she said, I have no idea. I said, she's not allowed to take the cat out of the kennel. Tell her she's got to put the cat back into the kennel or we'll drop her off someplace short of Los Angeles. And that solved the problem. But yeah, folks, people do the weirdest things on airplanes. Okay, the next question is from Jacob on Air. Have you ever fallen asleep in the cockpit? Would I ever admit to that, Jacob? No. Now, what kind of sleep are you talking about here? Like the drooly leg out the side of your mouth sleep or the just nod off and catch yourself type of sleep? I'm guilty to the nod off one for sure. There's actually a thing that we're allowed to do in the cockpit. You tell the other pilot when you're up at altitude, hey, I'm going to close my eyes for a couple of minutes and kind of take what they call a combat nap. Close your eyes, rest your eyes. I don't think I've ever fallen completely asleep during that, but it is very refreshing. If you do that for like 10 to 12 minutes, it's better than a long full-on nap. Have I ever flown with anybody else who fell asleep? No comment. Question number 3. This is from Darkest Soul. Have you ever seen any UFOs or heard chatter over the radio about other crews seeing anything strange? Yeah, people talk over the radio sometimes about strange stuff. Here's my answer about UFOs. I have never seen a UFO from the outside. And I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, next question is this. Mike on repeat. Why do tray tables need to be up for landing? All right, this is actually a great question, and it has to do with safety. Now, first of all, you don't need your tray table down for landing, but if you felt the need to keep it down, if you had to get out of that airplane in an emergency, like everybody's got to get out, and by the way, the FAA standard is everybody out and down the slides in 90 seconds or less, and that's using only half the slides that are available. That's a pretty ambitious goal. If you've got to raise every other tray table to get out of your aisle, to get into the aisle, to jump into the slides, guess what? That's going to be an impedance to your progress. It's safety. That's why we keep the seatbelts up and they keep the seat forward. All right, next question is this. Juvie Live or Juvie Live, can turbulence flip an airplane upside down or cause serious damage to a plane? I've never known it to turn an airplane upside down. I suppose in theory it probably could. I just don't know of an instance where it ever has. Can it cause damage to an airplane? Oh, absolutely. Worse than that is flying through either a thunderstorm or hail. That causes a lot of damage, but that's the most severe type of turbulence. I had an incident years ago, 8 seconds of what's called severe turbulence, and there was damage to the back of the airplane, and there was everything came out into the aisles. 7 people were hurt altogether, and it was the 7 people that hadn't buckled their seatbelt, as I had told them. I had turned the seatbelt sign on, and then we had said to everybody, we're going to have some bumps up ahead. Please make sure your seatbelt is fastened. 7 people got hurt. Not seriously, but they did get hurt. All right, next question is this. My name is Boxy. Hi, Boxy. How are you? All right. Have you ever gotten into an argument with an air traffic controller? I wouldn't say a full-on argument. A disagreement, a heated conversation, a difference of opinion, yes. And this was over in India. I was taxiing a fully loaded Boeing 777 at 775,000 pounds. It's as heavy as that airplane gets. And the ground controller called me up and asked me how fast I was taxiing. And in front of me on the computer, it says 12 miles an hour. I was going 12 miles an hour, which is a normal taxi speed. I said 12 miles an hour. He called back and said, no, you're not. You're going 6 and you need to pick up your speed. And I said, no, I'm going 12. And it went back and forth. And rule number 1 about flying an airplane is this. Don't ever let anybody else outside of your flight deck, your cockpit, fly your airplane for you. That guy was trying to fly my airplane for me. We had a difference of opinion. I wouldn't call it an argument, though. All right, next one is Trapper Pat. What do pilots really think about clapping after landing? Okay, well, first of all, Pat, you don't hear the clapping up in the flight deck. There's lots of other noises and the people are too far away. What do I think about it when I do hear that the people clapped? I love it. I think people should do it more often. We don't participate in life as much as we ought to. We don't celebrate little moments. And I know some people are doing it because they're just scared to death and now they're on the ground and they're like, you're my hero, we landed. But it's rewarding to the pilots to know that you did a good job and everybody thinks it was a good landing. Yeah, so go ahead, clap away. You might be the only one, but maybe other people will catch on. Dicey Dave. All right, Dave. Ever had a bird strike and what happened? Well, I won and the bird lost, Dave. Yes. Now, I've had several bird strikes over the years, both with the Navy and in the airlines. What happens afterwards is you have to report a bird strike. If it's in the vicinity of the airport, like right over the runway, they'll go and they'll sweep the runway to make sure that, get the birds off the runway. But they also have to inspect the airplane. And some bird strikes, as you know, Sully hit a flock of geese and it took out both of his engines. That will do a lot of damage to an airplane. So there might be a hole or a dent or something in the airplane. It might have to go in for repairs. So it always has to be reported, always has to be looked at before the airplane goes back into the air again. It's a fairly common thing, a bird strike. Paul Adrift. What's your favorite airport to land at and why? Paul, I actually get asked this question a lot. And my favorite airport over all the years, the 40 years I've been flying, is Gibraltar in Spain. Now, Gibraltar doesn't belong to Spain. It actually belongs to the United Kingdom. That's another story for another day. But it's a wonderful, scenic little runway. It's built out into the ocean. They actually carved out the inside of the Rock of Gibraltar and they took the stones and they built a short runway. So it's challenging to get on. It's challenging to get stopped. But the only road into Gibraltar goes right across that runway. And so they have to stop the traffic. So it's like a train coming, right? Except I'm the train. And they stop the traffic and you land and you wave at the people as you're going by. Then you have to back taxi on the runway. You can go past to taxi back into the ramp area. And then they bring up the gates and the traffic starts going again. It's really kind of a cool episode, besides it being just an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous place to go. The next question is from Hans Soest. What's your go-to in-flight snack? I love this question. You're my new best friend because I love snacks. They used to have great snacks on the airplanes like Snickers bars and Mounds and those kind of things. I love those. They've gone to like healthy snacks now and they're awful. My absolute favorite over the years were something that was called Rachel's Brownies. I don't even know if they're in business anymore, but it was the most delicious little brownie and I would eat every single bite of that on every flight. I don't think the passengers ever saw them because the crew would grab all the Rachel's Brownies, and yeah, it's why I'm Captain Steve. Rachel's Brownies, now you know. All right, DJ Monty, what's the funniest moment you've had with a first officer or co-pilot? Wow, there are a lot of great memories over the years. One guy in particular, when the iPads first came out, we didn't always have iPads in the cockpit. And it was about 10, 12 years ago, I think, when they started doing the iPads. And I've got a little security code, so you can't get into my iPad. But this one first officer stole my security code. He was looking over my shoulder. And then when I left the cockpit, and came back up later, he had gotten into my iPad and he had used the camera on it to take a selfie up his nose, right? So it's one of these, like that. So, and he'd made it the wallpaper on my iPad. So I'm getting back into my iPad expecting the, pretty little whatever I had on the front screen. And here's a picture of the guy sitting next to me, like that. And I just started losing it. I was laughing so hard, tears were coming down my face. And I posted that to the internet and started a Facebook page in his honor. And I haven't heard from him since. Love Today FM has a question. Waffles or pancakes? Waffles, for sure. Waffles are very much like a pilot. It's very compartmentalized, and pilots tend to compartmentalize everything in their life. There's a little box for everything, and waffles are the perfect food for pilots. And now the next question is butter or syrup? Do you put the syrup on first and then the butter? No, the butter has to go on. It has to be spread evenly over the waffle, and then the syrup goes on. Why? So the syrup doesn't soak into the waffle and ruin it. All right, that's a pro tip, number one, from good old Captain Steve on how to eat your waffle. Next question, Steve Tuned. Steve, buddy, good name. Steve Tuned. How close have you come to running out of fuel? Not very close, Steve. That's something that we really pay a lot of attention to. There have been a couple of incidences over the years back in the military where we got kind of low on fuel, and the reason being that the weather was so bad where we went. Generally speaking, commercial or military, you take enough fuel to get to your destination, shoot an approach to a missed approach to go to your alternate, and everybody always has an alternate airfield, and shoot an approach there and still have 10% of your fuel remaining. I have done all of that, gone to my alternate, shot several approaches at my alternate, and gone to one after that. I think we got down to about 4,000 or 5,000 pounds of gas on an airplane that typically you would land with about 10. That's less than half of my reserve fuel, and that was as close as I ever wanted to get to that. But yeah, now you know. So this question is from, hey, it's San. Can a plane land with no engines? The answer to that is yes, it can. It's not preferred, but it can. An airplane keeps flying even if the engines aren't producing thrust. Generally speaking, I use the 3-to-1 rule. It's not really a glide ratio, but in my commercial jet, the Boeing 777, if I'm at 30,000 feet, I can make it about 90 miles. So that's 3 times 30. I know that if I've got an airport that's suitable somewhere in that 90-mile radius around where I am, I can make it all the way there without any thrust on my engines. I'll set a speed probably initially about 250 knots. Then I'll slow down a little bit lower than that as I got the runway made. And then right at the last minute, I lower the landing gear, put a little bit of flaps out, and then honk on the brakes once I get down on the ground. But the answer is yes, the plane keeps flying even if you don't have any thrust applied to the engines. Cody on tap. What happens if both pilots get food poisoning? Can ATC remote fly the plane? All right, Cody, first of all, you got that from watching the movie Airplane from 1980, where all 3 of the pilots ate the fish and they drug them out through the center aisle of the airplane, and 2 people from the back of the airplane had to land the airplane. Yeah, we're both allowed to eat the same food. I don't know that anybody's ever gotten sick from food poisoning, or 2 pilots, let's put it that way, because I actually have gotten sick from food poisoning on a flight. I was okay to keep flying, but I didn't feel very well. And the answer is no, ATC cannot remote fly the airplane. The technology is there. You can fly a drone, but commercial airliners don't have that technology just yet. That's it. That's all the questions I've got for this time. Keep those questions coming. I sure hope you learned something. I'm Captain Steve. Fly safe.